Hey, this is Rishi from The Growing Home. We're here with my friend John Glavis and this is BoTierra farm or garden?
It's actually the BoTierra Biodiversity Research Center.
Okay.
And what we are basically is a biodiversity research arm of agriculture. We're kind of looking at all the different indigenous food plants that might work in a maritime climate of California.
And by indigenous food plants, you mean plants that were eaten in the past by indigenous cultures? I mean, what are some of the indigenous cultures that you brought plants back from?
Sure. Well, the primary thing is that we say the word indigenous. That word gets used a lot. These are plants that, let's say, have been used culturally. Primarily, I would say most of the plants we are using are from the highland Andean area of Bolivia, Peru, and Ecuador.
And what is it that you found about that region that has, that their plants work really well over here? Or what is it? Why is it that you feel that those plants work so well? And why are they important nutritionally for us today?
Well, the thing that I found when I was living in Ecuador was I was living in the highlands of Ecuador, and I was saying this feels like California, where it's foggy summers and fairly mild winters. We don't get a lot of freezing.
Okay.
When I was in the high altitudes of Ecuador, I would notice that, well, this is just like the climate where these plants grow back in California. So I tried, also there's a wonderful book called The Lost Crops of the Inca, which is also talking about underutilized food crops from that area that are very highly nutritious. To answer your second question, a lot of these so-called indigenous food plants are very highly nutritious, very adaptable, and they have a cultural history of being used in their country for a lot of different things. There's a lot of ceremony around them, and one of the things about BoTierra that we're trying to emphasize is we're looking at the spiritual dimension of food. We're trying to answer what that really means. If you're asking, if you're saying spiritual dimension, what does that mean? And primarily what we're looking at is plants that are connected to a lot of different levels. The historical, for instance, quinoa. Let's use the example of quinoa.
Yeah.
There's an example right here.
And you have a lot of quinoa that you brought with you today.
Yes, in fact, it's one of our top plants that we discovered for the maritime. It has almost a complete amino acid set, so it's almost complete protein.
Yeah.
And in my research, one of the things that I was looking into was that I found a research study by NASA where they were going to use quinoa in outer space for hydroponic growing when they were going to look for men's trip to Mars and so on.
Wow.
And of all the plants they studied in the entire planet, quinoa was the #1 plant they could use for that. So I thought, wow, if they can grow that in a small amount of space and survive on it, what can I do in my farm? The other thing that we discovered that I think is very important and that most people have no idea is that the greens, these greens of quinoa, are absolutely delicious as spinach. They are 20% protein, and the reason you don't see these in this country is that nobody was growing it here.
Yeah, importing the
quinoa grain.
Okay.
And then, so we started working, and I like the greens almost as much as the red.
Could I try one?
Sure.
I grow amaranth, which does really well in our hot climate down there, and that also has a really nice green, produces a great grain. So it's really a similar plant.
Yeah, they're very similar. In fact, they're grown together many times. It depends on the weather. We tried amaranth. We had one amaranth trial, but we had very poor seeding. It needs warm nights.
Yeah. So that's actually, the quinoa, that green tastes really good. I just finished chewing.
Oh, good. So you got a direct experience with it.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm surprised by the greens, and everyone that I've known that has tried it really enjoyed it. Yeah. So we're now in the process of trialing 11 varieties of quinoa, and we're identifying the ones that grow the largest heads. It also heads that are slightly open, so that if it gets too foggy, there won't be a lot of mold and aphid problems for which you can get on mold.
That's very cool. And do you mind showing us around some of the other plants you brought today?
Glad to. Come on in.
This one I'm just getting familiar with. I just got a plant of this myself. And this is
yacon.
Yacon.
Yeah, yacon is a really interesting plant for a lot of different reasons. One of them is it produces these tubers, and these are tubers that are like they're kind of like dahlia bulbs. but they're really good jicama. You know, you can cut them up and they're crunchy, juicy.
Oh, okay.
And the other thing about them is that the cone has an inulin sugar, and inulin sugars are not digested really easily. So what is nice about this is that the people with diabetes and have sugar problems on that level.
Okay, so it's something like stevia where it tastes sweet, but you're not really getting sugar in your body. Okay.
And what we do is we grind this up, boil it down as a syrup, and it makes a really good like maple syrup for a diabetic. You can just pour syrup all over the pancakes for the first time.
That is very interesting. I didn't know that about it. What's the next one here? This looks like a tomato relative.
Yeah, this is actually called gel tomata, and gel tomata procumbens, this one particular. And this is a very unknown black nightshade. The black nightshades are very interesting in that there's this kind of belief systems against black nightshades.
They're poisonous.
Yeah, the so-called deadly nightshade,
right,
which is the one that's in this country is totally edible.
Yes, that's the one you see in the parks with the little blackberry on it. Okay.
And everybody is told you not to eat it. All the kids are told not to touch it.
Yeah.
You know, it looks similar to another one that is poisonous in Europe. But the belief systems, one of the things that we found at BoTierra was that there's a tremendous amount of prejudice on food.
Right.
And so when I was in Ecuador, for example, I was shopping at a market, an Indian market, I was buying native foods, and there was a fairly well-to-do Ecuadorian saying, well, why are you buying poor people's food? Why? This is dirty stuff.
Yeah.
This is from, you can't wash this enough to make it safe. And I was like, whoa. And then I started really researching prejudice, and I started looking at, for instance, in Europe, the Northern Europeans wouldn't eat tomatoes because the Italians ate them. The English would eat potatoes because the Irish ate them. And we're talking about hundreds of years of these foods not being used.
And these are some of the most nutritious, most tasty plants that we have.
Yes, in fact, potatoes, when they were taken by the Spanish to Europe, opened up a whole level of opportunity for people to move into more marginal areas. And before they were kind of eating gruels, they were eating barleys and these things. When potatoes came in, it pushed the potential for people to populate areas all over Europe way before that. And interestingly enough, the potato then came to the United States from Europe, and it originated in the Peruvian Andes,
right,
and migrated there. The other thing that we're growing too is, which we might touch on here, are some of the other Indian tubers that are unknown to.
Is that like the oca and the mashua? Are you going?
Yes, oca, mashua, and the latest new one is called uyuko. And uyuko is very unknown to most people. It's one of the most beautiful tubers there is. They're small, they're kind of like, maybe the size, but they're like yellow with magenta stars, green with purple stripes, and they're high protein, high minerals, and what we're developing them for, and they seem to be growing really well where we are. They grow them in New Zealand also. They're called earth gems. And I think they're going to be a great children's food because I think we can kind of roll those on in front of kids. They'll think they're candy bars.
They're that good. They taste that good.
They're yummy. They're crunchy, yummy, and the colors like you can't believe that they're natural.
Wow, that sounds like something I need to grow.
Yes, yes, another wonderful plant.
Okay, what's the let's say the last one here?
Okay, well this is Ashitaba. Ashitaba is a angelica from the Izu Islands of Japan. And this one's kind of going into seeding now. This is a biennial, so it has a 2-year life, and it forms these really big leaves, sometimes really large, widespread leaves. And when you cut them, the sap that comes out is called chalcone. It's a really super high antioxidant that is now being studied by Tufts University and other people as a really promising anti-cancer, anti-tumor. It seems to go to the place in your body that you need to help and work it out.
Wow.
And it's kind of like a bitter celery. In Japan, it's very well known. They make tempura out of the leaves. They dry it as a tea. They grind it and make it into ice cream and into noodles also. They, as I mentioned to you earlier, there's these things called ashitabars in the underground subway system of Tokyo, where you can go get a slug of ashitaba juice and carrot juice on your way zooming into the these places, but virtually unknown in America.
Yeah.
And
actually, we were growing it at our place. We just saw this plant here labeled ashitaba, and we had it in our front yard for so long we had no idea what it is. So yeah, it is. I mean, even to the experienced gardener, it is unknown.
Yes.
So it's great that you brought it here. And
yeah, we're very excited about it. We're trying to get it out there in the world. And really, I mean, there's so many other plants. I don't know if you want any more at this point. It might be enough for now.
Yeah, I think that's a good amount for our viewers,
Yeah,
and
great.
hopefully we can introduce some of these plants to them, at our own garden. So thank you very much.
Oh, I'm so delighted.
Talking to
yeah, well,
us.
thank you very much.
Yeah. And to our viewers, please keep looking out for the rest of our coverage of the Heirloom Expo. We had a lot of great videos and interviews so far, and more. I'm sure more to come. So yeah, keep watching and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Thanks for watching.